Welcome back. Today I wanted to give my full thoughts and opinions about the new Auric Maelstrom update, as well as the upcoming Xbox release and the new skill trees, and I'll also show off some of the old data mine stuff that I have that shows most of what the new skill trees will have to offer. I obviously haven't play tested it yet. I don't think they'll ever let me, and that's perfectly fine. I'd much rather be able to hold them accountable for their actions and try to provide real feedback with hopes that positive change gets implemented so the game can actually improve. But that's also why we have to talk about why prospectively such a good update is actually failing and why Darktide might not ever escape this loop. But before we get started, I do want to thank the channel members. You guys really help keep things running, so thank you so much. But letting this off, we have to start with the new Maelstrom update. There's a total of 14 missions with 12 playable in game right now. I'm referencing Grimm's guide from Reddit again, so that's linked in the description for you. And these missions are genuinely the best update Darktide has ever received. They add a level of challenge that I wasn't expecting, and they make me want to min-max and put some importance on having the best possible loadout to make sure you can actually beat them. So far, my favorites are the spam monstrosities. Just getting to kill a whole bunch of them at the same time has made some crazy things happen, and I'm already making great memories with it. But the absolute most fun I have is the waves of mutants, poxbursters, and hounds. I think this is the highest difficulty you can go into. And originally I did think it was monstrosities, but they end up being a lot easier to take care of than the waves of madness. Everyone has to bring their A game to that in a top tier build to get through it, and you're forced to work together, and I really love that team play aspect. I don't like the stuff that forces you to play solo or things that push you in that direction. So it really reignited the love I have for this game and genuinely makes me want to log in and play. I've been getting a few people together from my community Discord just to go blast out a few here and there, and I've just been posting the amazing experiences we've been having on the alt channel, and I'm just making amazing memories with everyone. So thank you for coming to play, guys. It's a blast every single time. It also makes you wonder, if this update is so good and these missions are so fun, why is it failing and losing players instead of making people come back to try them out? And one of the key issues is that the core gameplay loop that people love so much is in a complete dumpster fire right now because of how laggy it is. You already know what I'm going to say here. It's just restart the servers once per week. Every competent company, I mean even solo game devs and private servers, schedule regular restarts. This quality of life update was amazing for the first few days because the server got restarted and fixed almost all the memory leak on their end. Now one of the biggest things degrading the game is not being able to play it when you turn it on. If you aren't just spam disconnecting from 4 games in a row halfway through the hardest difficulty the game can throw at you, the hit reg is awful and things are just lagging around, teleporting everywhere. But don't worry, they also added the ability to see your ping in private matches to show you that it doesn't matter at all and they need to restart the servers. What a shocking development we've arrived at here. So once again, the obvious thing that needs to be done to improve the quality of the game that takes minimal effort is being completely ignored. And that's one of the reasons I see people just giving up altogether again instead of just muscling through the missions, is if you can't play them, you can't enjoy them. And the next thing I pray every day to the Emperor that I never have to bring up again in this nightmare fever dream of a game is crafting. Somehow, some way, they managed to run the entire update into the ground. I've been trying to keep the people who cared about Darktide informed about its updates, and it's been a lot of disasters along the way, but in turn, I've also received a lot of feedback from the people who left the game that want to come back when eventually it's good enough to play again. And with all the feedback I've had from you guys over the past few months, the vast majority, like the main point of contention on people returning, always comes down to crafting, the gacha experience, and how terrible it feels just to participate in the system. So this update lets you freely change 2 things on a weapon or curio. For curios, this was really good, but there's still no way to buy a curio from Brunt like the rest of the weapons, so they're still in a shop camping RNG meta, and they were clearly overlooked for a while now. But in the quality of life update, they really needed to make them purchasable, and that's something that they have to do in the next update. So after that, when we look at crafting weapons, you can fish to the second perk without a lot of negatives, but obtaining a god roll still follows the same rules as before, making this a pointless change. The fact that we still have to talk about removing the locks when so many people hate them is just a living nightmare from a gacha fever dream. And one thing to really note here is Darktide's launch was so bad, the majority of people wrote Fat Shark off as a scumbag developer. This isn't a secret. This isn't like, oh my god, news. This is just old news. They killed their brand and any trust players had in them. And I go very in-depth on how all that happened in my full review. And as they continue to move forward, the more you see that shiny AAA mentality with D-tier follow-through that you'd expect from EA or Activision. They're solo devs making games, crushing the market just by listening to their players and solving key contention points inside of a week. So to see the first good update completely ruined by a tertiary system is just completely ridiculous. This system does not respect players' time and is purely for artificial playtime inflation without any reward. It's a slot machine without any RNG protection, and every time I see someone try and defend the system, it always comes back to, but the god rules. The problem is that anyone cares already has the god rules. I'm missing 2 blessings in the game, Bloodthirsty on a Force Sword and Bloodthirsty on a Heavy Eviscerator. And on the Eviscerator alone, I've rolled 148 times, mostly on stream, and not gotten it. I mean, I also had like 112 Power Swords to get Power Cycler. We just desperately need RNG protection and a way to buy blessings from Milk Bucks or something. Right now, this just degrades the quality of the game massively and the level of fun you can have to a degree that makes you feel like you're being played instead of actually playing the game. So without a way to buy blessings, people might just have my RNG, get annoyed, and leave. I've used the arbitrary number of 10,000 milk bucks before to buy a blessing, but with the combined wallet, I actually don't think this is a bad number anymore. On a single character, that's like 3 weeks of missions, but if you have 4 characters, you can just get the blessing the week that you want it. And having this RNG protection by letting us buy what we want and letting us make decisions for the cool, fun things we want to do is one of the most important things that could happen to Darktide by showing that it values our time. But when all the new players come in and see the current gacha state of obtaining blessings, they're just going to leave as fast as they came. If someone like me can't get everything in the game after 9 months, you can't expect somebody with a normal job, irrelevant if they're a new casual, average, or veteran player, to be expected to play in such a time vampire of a gameplay loop. And they're not choosing to participate in this loop because it's a waste of time. It just makes people frustrated, and when you're frustrated playing a game, you just quit because you're not having fun. And after already having bad experiences with Fat Shark, nobody's giving Darktide any more of their time, and that is directly reflected when you look at the Steam chart numbers. You cannot cope your way out of this one. It's a bad system with no player retention. And the Maelstrom update actually exacerbated the issue by making you want multiple weapons to deal with every situation, hence why people are leaving, because they need more weapons and it's not fun to participate in more of the crafting system. So initially what I thought was going to happen with this update was that crafting locks were going to be removed and that crafting costs were going to be increased to compensate for that. That way your playtime is in the actual missions having fun instead of at a crafting table. They also can't properly balance the game with locks in place without another mass exodus because the game will die. If you've ever played a gacha game, you know that any time a gacha character gets nerfed, there's always a mass outrage. So with the crafting being a gacha experience, it provides the same loop of outrage. And because the game can't be balanced without people getting mad, it just degrades the gameplay experience. So it's really sad to see it in this state when it wasn't the original goal of the crafting system in the first place. When we look at this old article, it was supposed to be expansive and fun, focusing on player choice and giving us the ability to mix and match, letting us cook up the coolest and most fun weapons that we could imagine. And instead it turned into gatekeeping everyone from actually being able to enjoy the weapons they want to make in a fun way. And it just shows that Fat Shark really hasn't learned any lessons yet and still doesn't think the game's good enough to retain people without artificial playtime inflation. I really do think the new missions are challenging even with god rolls. Like if you random queue up, most people are just using whatever they want to have fun with, and that's perfectly fine. But if 1 or 2 people aren't just min-max to the teeth, it is an absolute struggle and it's so much fun. And it's a great goal for people to work towards. It's fun and engaging. They don't need the artificial playtime inflation garbage anymore, and I really don't think they ever did. But that's all it's ever going to be until crafting is unlocked completely. The reason that it's needed at this point is because they have to rebuild their player trust and show us that they actually care about our time on their game. It won't degrade the game at all, and it only opens up options for people to have more fun focused on player choice. And when we look at the new skill trees update, it's supposed to be focused on player choice. But if the game launches in this state on Xbox, it's just going to juice players for a few weeks, then fizzle back down into the death spiral that it's currently stuck in. So I know most people understand this, but my main goal of making these kind of videos is to always try to get the most amount of people to have the most amount of fun on the game that I love playing. My favorite Warhammer 40k faction is the Imperial Guard, so you can imagine how much I actually like this game. And seeing the new skill trees and not being able to play them early really does suck, but I know I'll never get that special treatment to do that kind of thing because it's always more important to me to show off the truth about what's happening. And while I don't know what pictures mean what, that doesn't really matter with some imagination when we can cross-reference between the data mines and the PC Gamer article that leaked a lot more than they think it did. Now, a lot of this is subject to change because it's an old data mine, but expect most of it to be the same. There's no reasoning behind throwing this old workout that was meant for the launch of the game anyways. So in the future skill tree update, each class is going to be broken down into melee, range, and support variants with 2 new ultimates for each class, with current feats and new ones making up the rest of the new skill trees. We're going to start with Zealot, and we had to perform some deep rocket surgery on this one by matching the pictures to figure out which each thing will be. And when we zoom in, it's the same picture as the current Zealot ult, and this is gun damage increase based on distance, so it's safe to assume that the other 2 are also ultimates. And when we bring up this old Reddit thread with all the data mine stuff as a reference point, We know that Zealot has a corruption healing variant, which would make sense for the green skills to be focused on buffing your team and providing corruption resistance or healing, and the red skills will be focused on melee damage and defense. And the yellow skills will be focused on guns and impact. And when we also look at the Reddit thread, there's 2 kinds of grenades, which there's 2 kinds of new grenades on the skill tree. Everything starts adding up, and you can kind of imagine which of these go with which picture pretty easily, just based on the description of them. But obviously everything is subject to change. We don't really know the truth about everything, but I mean, we will on October 4th. So this is basically what you can be expecting. Then Psyker is going to get Protectorate, which makes sense when we think about the big protective bubble picture on the PC Gamer article. So we can speculate that a lot hasn't changed there either. It's going to be focused on providing defensive buffs for your team and blocking incoming ranged fire. And Biomancer, which was leaked in 2022 Gamescom trailer, in theory is going to have psychic blades that hit high priority targets. And when we cross-reference it again to the PC Gamer article, compare it to this, we can guarantee that's exactly what it's going to be. Now, the veteran squad leader is focused on buffing damage and grinding out in melee, and when we look at the kind of ultimate that's going to get, it's going to be movement speed, attack speed, melee damage, and reduce block cost for 10 seconds. So it makes perfect sense. It lines up like that. I don't know if that will end up being the ultimate, but there's no reason to change that. And there's also another leak in that 2022 Gamescom video called the Grunt class. And judging by the other ultimate, it's going to be focused on blazing away with all the ranged weapons. It has reduced spread, sway, charge time, recoil, and increased reload speed. So that'll be really cool. Finally, we have the Ogryn. It has a Bonebreaker variant with no info and a gun lug spec that had quite a few details focused on ranged already, and I can't wait for that. Honestly, being a stubber enjoyer, this is just going to be insane. And obviously this is all speculation, but I have a feeling like with most of the Darktide stuff, I'm very close to the reality of things. I would also love to test this stuff before it goes live, but I know what I am. So expect all the old things to be in the trees along with all the new stuff that I showed, plus a couple of new things that are unknowns. I also linked the Reddit thread with all this info as well as the raw data mine if you want to go browse it yourself. And overall, I think the new skill trees will revitalize the game, and it will be really good for replayability and open up a ton of options focused on player choice and people having fun. And that's what the game really needs, letting us choose what we want to do and how we want to build. So choice being the focus, as long as crafting locks remain with no way to buy blessings, the server's not getting restarted, and a terrible social tab that makes it impossible to make new friends. Every update will just be a flash in the pan and end up having the same death spiral effect that we're stuck in right now. I don't see the point in having all these steps in the right direction anymore if there's no clear destination. All you're doing is walking for no reason at this point. So all of that combined is why this update is bleeding players and why any future update will suffer the exact same fate instead of stabilizing and starting to grow. It's very clear what the obvious answer for what needs to happen for improvement is at this stage, and I really hope they just take that step to make people happy and just let us have fun our way together like they originally wanted us to. This is exactly what I want, but this is the original vision for the game anyways, from their perspective and their words. But I also want to thank my channel members again. The extra support you give me really helps keep the channel alive and lets me keep doing what I want to do. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the extra love you guys show me. And that's going to be all for now. And I hope you all have a great night. The things I saw in this corner, bro.